Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to your last session of the day. I really appreciate this audience because I know we're competing with cocktail hour. I have an invitation for one in my pocket that I'm missing right now. So you should appreciate my dedication to you as well. So my name is Ben Fineman. I'm the program manager for video, voice, and collaboration with Internet 2. And we have a really awesome panel with us today. So I'm glad that you stuck it out to hear what these industry veterans and experts have to say. And I'm hoping we have lots of folks in Netcast land that are following along with us. I think you can tweet to us at #TechX14 as well. So the format for this, I'm just going to do a quick introduction for each of our panelists, and then each will have the opportunity to give 2-minute opening remarks, and then we're going to just have a conversation for the next 45 minutes. If you have questions or comments that you would like to interject to our panel discussion, please feel free to step up to the microphone. Otherwise, enjoy the conversation. And so starting immediately to my right, we have Ben Pinkerton with Vidyo. And so Vidyo is a NetPlus service provider. Actually, the Vidyo service is delivered by ID Solutions, but the NetPlus Vidyo service is in the early adopter stage of deployment. Ben is the technical marketing manager at Vidyo based out of Columbus, and he's been with the company for a little bit over 6 years, I believe. And Ben's actually been in our community for a long time. He was around at the Ohio State University during the inception of the Internet 2 Commons. So Ben, opening remarks.
Well, first of all, thank you for the chance to be here with you all today. Vidyo, for those of you that don't know, is really a visual communications platform. And we deliver video communications through an extensible platform that delivers not only high quality video with a high quality of experience, but also that's extensible so that you can fit it into custom integrations or custom workflows, for example. So really excited to talk about this topic in terms of service delivery because we have our partner ID Solutions that offers video as a service. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for being here, Ben. And I realize that I'm going out of the order of my slides, but that's okay. We'll work with it. So next to Ben, we have Robb Woods, who's the head of sales engineering at BlueJeans. And BlueJeans is another NetPlus service provider in the early adopter stage of availability. And Robb is based out of Mountain View and has been with BlueJeans for about 4 years.
Correct.
And before that, he was with Polycom, and he's been in the industry for a long time. So Robb, opening remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, for having me. Thank you all for joining us today. For those of you who don't know, BlueJeans Network is the largest cloud-based video collaboration platform. We've got global presence delivering video communications needs to companies and organizations of all shapes and sizes. We take kind of a different approach to how to deliver video communications. We look at it from a purely cloud standpoint, which should basically be accessible to people all over, no matter what device or what solution they're currently using. So we believe in the proliferation of video communications, as well as the interoperability aspects of it as well. So users who are having legacy deployments of hardware maybe on their networks, they should still be able to leverage that to meet with people no matter what network those users are on. So thank you.
Perfect, and thanks for being here, Robb. So next to Robb, and I got to find the right slide here. There we go. We have Philippe Galvez, with Evogh. And not with Evogh. Philippe is one of the co-founders as well as the CEO of Evogh. So we're very pleased to have him with us today. Evogh, which is Evogh's video conferencing solution, is also in the NetPlus program in the early adopter stages of availability. Philippe is, I already mentioned the co-founder, CEO of Evogh. He's also been in our higher ed community for a while. He was formerly a senior research scientist at the California Institute of Technology, and he has something like 20 years of experience in the collaboration industry. So Philippe, opening remarks.
Thank you, Ben, for the opportunity to be there. So Evogh has been developed over the years, last at least 15 years, and growing from the communities, as Ben was mentioning. The way it has been developed was from networking layers and going up to the applications, and we're providing HD multi-point capabilities over the cloud, and that's ranging from different type of interoperability perspectives, so meaning all the different protocols up to the HD and telepresence environment. We have a pretty high footprint within the educations where we leverage and we intend to expand that. And that's much more the very high-end capabilities of Evogh.
Perfect, thank you. And thanks again for being here. And to Philippe's right, last but not least, we have Hakon Dahle, the CTO of Pexip. And Hakon is based out of Oslo. He was in the neighborhood anyway, but we're very pleased that he made the trip and was able to align his schedule to be here today. He's also the former CTO of Tandberg, if you're familiar with that history of the video conferencing industry. And after Tandberg joined Cisco, he was a CTO at Cisco as well. And Hakon is another veteran. He's been in the video conferencing industry for over 20 years, and I'm very pleased to have you. Any opening remarks from you?
Thanks for having me. It's been 20 years. Yeah, I would like to say that right now is an incredibly exciting time to be in this industry. So I've been working with Pexip for the last 2 years, and we've been developing a highly scalable platform that can be deployed on-premise or in the cloud. And it has allowed us to work on some incredibly challenging technologies, spanning from interoperability, driving costs down, and a very advanced distributed architecture. So these are exciting times.
Perfect. And thank you again for being here. And thank you to all of our panelists for being here. So just to start off the conversation, I wanted to ask, what technical challenges do you have to overcome in designing a collaboration solution that scales to cloud scale?
I think the first one you have to think about when you start looking at putting operations such as video communications in the cloud is obviously scale, right? You have to be able to be rapid deployment models. One of the things about having a cloud architecture today is you're going to be used by numerous individuals who may not have had exposure to video communications tools in the past. They're not used to some of the operational aspects of video communications. So as video becomes more and more adopted, and I think all of us up here have had a great expansion in our footprints, you have to really be ready for that, whether it's deploying it on someone's network or deploying it strictly within the cloud and data centers. It has to be very scalable and in a very cost-effective manner.
I would just like to add to that too. One of the challenges with cloud-based visual communications is the quality. Once you leave on-prem networks, traditional systems, you have to make sure that the network connection is going to maintain a high-quality connection. So you need to look for systems that are going to deliver a high quality of experience for users, so that it can deal with whether the user is connecting from a Wi-Fi connection or a residential cable modem or DSL connection. It has to be able to adapt and adjust. But I think another challenge too is this industry is changing rapidly. The use cases that people are using video for today won't be the same ones they're using next year or the year after that. So having a system or a platform that's extensible so that you can embed video into various workflows. We see this a lot in healthcare, for example, where physicians don't want to leave their EMR application to be able to communicate with a patient or have a consult with another physician. So to be able to take that experience, that video experience, and embed it right into the application itself that they're working on a daily basis is a critical component. So I think really those two things are one of the biggest challenges, and I think you need to really focus on those and thinking about what is the future path, or what could our potential future use cases be.
Yeah. So for me, I will start to try to redefine what we mean by on the cloud, because from a technical standpoint, on the cloud means elasticities. And when we deploy video or any services on the cloud, It doesn't mean that you just expand your data centers outside your environment. Is that you want to be able to use elasticity, which is available outside to your own usage. So what are the challenges associated with that is that you have to design a solution which is purely software. So otherwise, it doesn't work. It has to be on the cloud. It has to be softwares. I would go even to another layer. It has to be virtual, meaning that it has not to be dependent of any hardware or even OS associated with that. And then you can go to another layer, is that it should be cloud independent, meaning that it cannot work on any particular cloud. It can work with any cloud. And then when you have a perfect solution, then you can deploy your solutions on any cloud, anytime you want. An ideal architecture would mean that your cost of supporting the infrastructure should be close to zero if nobody is using it, up to something very expensive if you have a very high usage. And this is all this design, which is very complex, because you have to have all the components to be able to scale and to use the full elasticities of any cloud today which are on the market. And it's not simply to have your own data centers going outside of your environment, because then you come back to the same model. You just push the problems elsewhere that someone else has to take care of. So that's all the challenges from a technical standpoint that we try to address and hopefully at some point successful.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, I totally agree. Scale is incredibly important. We're talking about global deployments here. Cost is also very important, and I agree with your conclusion that for us to drive costs down, it has to be a pure software-based approach, for sure. I think in addition to that, there has to be a distributed architecture underpinning the whole service that allows you to start small, that allows you to grow in a controlled fashion, either within a single data center or across multiple data centers as your footprint grows across the globe. And it should also be possible to add capacity on the fly as you grow without disrupting the service. So all these things make for some incredibly interesting challenges in developing a distributed architecture. And in addition to that, the distributed architecture needs to be such that it appears to the end user as if it is a single MCU in the old-fashioned way of speaking about these things. And also that it is managed as a single entity with configuration files being pushed out through the network so that you are ensured that the entire distributed architecture has a consistent configuration set. In addition to that, a distributed architecture based on standard units of compute, standard servers, also brings you a higher degree of reliability with no single points of failure, with the ability to move running processes from one server to another in case of failures and so on. So that part is quite crucial. Finally, for those businesses that are not yet quite ready to move everything into the cloud, a hybrid model can be very interesting, which is basically a deployment that spans on-premise and in the cloud at the same time, giving the customer the ability to host sufficient resources on-premise for their internal usage, and then use the cloud as a way to seamlessly burst for extra capacity, to host large events, meetings, and so on, for which you don't want to have all the capacity in-house.
So I'd like to hear more about the global scalability thread. So how do you go about optimizing both the end user experience as well as resource utilization, whether that's compute resource, network resource, all your technical resources, when you're architecting a globally distributed solution, supporting globally distributed conversations?
So one of the key things is localization of traffic. So you want to have the bridging components that are bringing people together. In our case, it's the video router, located geographically close to users. This provides two benefits. One, it localizes the traffic to that network segment, whether that's a region in a state or region in a country or even an on-campus type of scenario. That helps reduce the backbone haul traffic. So if you have n number of participants in a call, you're not sending n number of streams across the WAN. You're sending them to the local node, and it's replicating them as needed. The other key is being able to seamlessly bridge calls for participants that are commonly in the same conference that are in those different regions. So that needs to be transparent to them. So from a user's perspective, they're just joining a call. They don't have to know, am I joining from the North American router? Am I joining from the South American connection? They just join, and it is completely transparent. And the key is when you start to talk about globally distributed conferences, the latency becomes a real factor. So by eliminating transcoding latency in those cases, you're improving the user experience. You don't get sort of the news correspondent when they're talking over satellite connection where you ask a question and then it's a half a second or a second later before you get the response. When you can take transcoding out of the mix, you're able to send that as fast as the network will allow, so the user experience is a much higher, more interactive and engaging.
Yeah, I would say actually on the inverse piece, the transcoding is actually a really important piece because that's what provides some of the interoperability. If you're not able to transcode between multiple protocols from different devices, you kind of limit yourself to a very homogeneous environment. And I think, from the deployment standpoint, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of video endpoints that are just distributed across the United States, but then also overseas. I agree with Ben in the fact that when you take that globally distributed architecture, you have to actually have that geolocation capability, okay? Not only that, but you have to be built around, or we believe that you should be built around a solution that is, web servers based. You build a specially designed box and you put it into a data center somewhere and then all of a sudden call it a cloud. It's kind of misleading. You really have to be able to say, this segment of our infrastructure is based on, maybe web content, right? You got your Drupal servers and things of that nature. But then you also might have your kind of your delivery mechanisms, right? The MCU piece that handles the transcoding, the interconnections, et cetera. So you have to take it in kind of I don't want to say a piecemeal approach, but actually have it be, specialized in the fact that, hey, someday you want to upgrade the service, whether it's, one of the build-outs where it's on someone's network premise and they want to upgrade it themselves, or it's handled by the service deliverer. But you shouldn't have to upgrade the whole thing at the same time. That creates disruption, that creates that downtime, those change requests that I think that many of us in the industry have historically faced. Hey, service is going to be down for the next 12 hours while we do an upgrade sort of environment. Creating it in such a way that you can upgrade database servers, you can upgrade Drupal servers, things of that nature is really key. The other piece too, and I think Ben kind of touched on this, is that interconnectivity. You actually have to be able to geolocate, geoload balance based on where your users are going to connect from. You shouldn't have to think about, I'm at company X, Y, or Z, and I'm going to invite somebody from Acme to join my meeting. They may be traveling. They may be somewhere in a hotel in Indianapolis. You may be hosting the call somewhere in Germany. And typically, most solutions would have you connect to that one host site where the meeting's hosted from. That's not the approach that we take. We actually do it in multiple data centers globally, and we basically know where to route your traffic based on your IP address. So you're connecting from Germany, you'll route to a European POP. You're connecting from Asia, you'll route to an Asian POP. That kind of delivery mechanism is really important. In making sure that you have the interconnect capabilities out of each of those data centers. You should be connecting with top-tier internet backbone providers to provide that kind of resiliency.
Like the Internet 2 network in
Like
the
the
US.
Internet 2 network, absolutely. But again, it's to help deliver. There's a constant struggle around that last mile that a lot of organizations face, not just within Vidyo, but certainly across a number of different applications. These types of approaches help eliminate some of that challenge.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on something Ben said. I think you're spot on when it comes to the fact that you need to have localization. You need to have the conference resources close to the end user. This will reduce latency, as you said, and that will improve the conversation flow, no doubt about that. It also reduces the bandwidth requirements over the long hauls, so you have less of a risk of packet loss, and the overall quality is just better. But I think where you might be wrong is when you say that transcoding by definition is bad. I probably side a little bit more with Robb there when I would like to say that transcoding is a requirement for interoperability between different types of devices such as Microsoft Lync, which is currently present in, 60% of North American enterprises?
Yeah.
It's out there. You got to deal with it. And then you have legacy 323 and SIP devices that might use H.263 or H.264 for video. And then you have new technologies such as WebRTC with VP8 and so on. And in addition to that, there's new codecs on the horizon, H.265, VP9. So you have to have a strategy for transcoding. Now, the good thing is, with recent server architectures, with the latest in technology, transcoding doesn't add that much delay anymore. It adds what you can get by with, say, 40 to 50 milliseconds of latency for a transcoding stage, and that doesn't really impact the quality. Yep. So I think transcoding is, in fact, a requirement, in addition to a proper distributed architecture that can cater to the needs of the user experience.
Yeah, so a few points I can jump in. Transcoding, I agree. I mean, it's a requirement. I mean, we like it or not. I mean, there will be different system, different codec, different environment, and we have at least to provide some functionalities such as transcoding to the entire system. Coming back a little bit to the scalability questions, and because we're speaking about the cloud here, the way to do it, how we try to address it, is that you have a video stream unit, and you want to match this with the same type of unit that the cloud is using. The cloud is using the CPU as a unit, bandwidth, and all the other metrics. So if the video stream unit is another one that you want to scale, and you develop the software just to match that, then you have infinite scalabilities. So you go to any cloud, and you just increase the unit as much as you want. Obviously, you have to have a fabric to do that. You have to have a fabric to be able to control and start, stop, do all the different actions that the user doesn't see, but the infrastructures will just manage. So if you manage to get softwares, an environment, controllers that can match the video stream unit with a cloud-based unit, then potentially you have infinite scalabilities around the globe, because you can use any cloud providers to do that.
Interesting. So I wanted to go back to something that Hakon mentioned, which was the WebRTC trend. And so WebRTC is a kind of a standard that enables web browsers to natively support video and voice collaboration. So you can think of it as how HTML5 is replacing the requirement to download the Flash plugin to play videos in your browser. Likewise, WebRTC enables you to do a video conference from within your web browser without downloading a separate plugin from a different vendor. So what are the implications that WebRTC has for cloud video collaboration?
So I think WebRTC itself is a great technology. WebRTC is not a full solution. Really what it's providing is endpoint technology, as you mentioned, which allows people to participate in a video call from their browser without the need for installation of plugins and software and so forth. And it really has a tremendous amount of potential in terms of applications where you want to embed video into different apps or workflows and so forth. We're pretty excited at Vidyo about WebRTC for a couple of reasons. One, at our core, we're really focused on creating really powerful, scalable infrastructure. And the clients are sort of necessary. Of course, if you want to join a call, you have to have some type of client. And we've partnered with Google to help add scalability to the next generation video codec in WebRTC VP9. So once VP9 is available with scalability, this now gives you the ability to have video calls from your browser with a high degree of quality. And it's because they're adding layers of scalability to the video encode that allows for dynamic adjustment of the video without the need for transcoding at the core. And when you transcode, the downside of transcode is that you do add some latency. You do put a more burden on the core of the network or the infrastructure. You have to have much more CPU resources to be able to transcode. Despite maybe what I had, the impression I left before, I'm not saying that transcoding is completely bad. It is required for interoperability, of course, and you should transcode when necessary. But with scalable VP9, that gives now the ability to have proliferation of endpoints from the browser that eliminate the need for expensive infrastructure that requires transcoding. So your data centers can be much smaller. The CPUs in the data center can be much smaller. You get tremendous scale because now the infrastructure is simply routing packets as opposed to doing a full decode and a full encode on each stream that goes through. So that allows you to deliver a much higher quality experience. Things like resolution become less of an issue. So we're starting to see in the commercial space, 4K televisions are becoming prevalent. The prices are coming down. Much like we saw with the change from SD to HD video conferencing, people are going to want that experience once they go and have a video call. When you don't have to transcode at the core, it's a very easy matter to up the resolution for 4K or even 8K and so forth because you don't have to have so much compute resources in the core.
Yeah, I think back to the question about what WebRTC is going to mean for the industry. I mean, obviously, it's a great technology. It's something that's really going to make video communications much more accessible to people that typically wouldn't have access to it. But it's still in developmental phases. I mean, the project as a whole is not really supported on basically any browser out there. You've got some challenges around Internet Explorer, Safari, Opera, obviously Chrome and Firefox leading that way with support for WebRTC. But the reality is it's actually going to bring a lot more of us closer together to having that face-to-face communication, despite geographical boundaries, as well as network boundaries. I think we've talked about the transcoding piece a couple of times here, and obviously, with WebRTC, with some of the underlying audio and video codecs that it will support, there will be need for some transcoding to happen there. You mentioned Google. We partnered recently with Google. They needed somebody to help them build basically a gateway from their Hangouts solution. So they approached BlueJeans and said, hey, we'd really love to work with you on building a platform, a gateway to help bring our Hangouts users into these boardrooms, right? The Polycom, Cisco, Microsoft Link type of environments. To do that, you need transcoding. So the fact of the matter remains, though, the WebRTC piece is actually going to bring more and more people up front towards that video collaboration piece. You start seeing a lot of students right now. They're starting to join more and more video calls, whether they're collaborating with their teams or whether they're collaborating with their professors in a learning environment. That's really the end goal, I think, with WebRTC, is to really make sure that video is accessible to everybody without the need for expensive hardware cameras, on-prem devices, things of that nature.
Yeah, and so to add to this remark, which is obviously very true, so we increase the number of endpoints and the easy access. Everybody will be able to do video from their desktop or even mobile. But does not replace the fact that you still need an infrastructure to support that, especially when you were speaking about large-scale capabilities. And that's not WebRTC that will provide that. So you would have a lot of millions of endpoints popping up and be able to do video conf in a more or less easy way, which is great. But at the end, you still want to manage that. You still want to manage the thousands, millions of streams coming from different places. And for that, again, you need an infrastructure that is capable of monitoring, supporting, scalable enough, not only to do WebRTC, but as well to do other devices, other protocol in the same time. So that's kind of putting the problem to the end users and not too much to the infrastructures, which is something which is being built by all the different vendors, I believe, now. If I just want to add another thing too, is that what I find about WebRTC is it's bringing a lot of promise and expectations. And one of my fears that I have is that people are waiting for that as a GRAR, as the big stuff, and then nothing is moving on. In fact, the reality is that we should not wait for that. It will come when the time will be there, but we still have to do some work, and we still have to provide the services, we still have to provide applications. And that's created a bit of confusion to the market, because you can speak with everyone, even those which never heard about video before, and they will say WebRTC as a solution. And you say, for what? Then I say, oh, I don't know. I just heard that WebRTC will be the solutions. And so that's what another angle that what WebRTC is coming on.
Yeah, well, I think WebRTC is extremely interesting because, well, it is the most promising technology that I've seen for true ad hoc visual communications. I think at least 10 years ago we talked about video for everyone, from anywhere to anywhere. And we're still not yet there, but this is an important step in that direction, that you will be able to do voice and video calling directly from your web browser. Nothing to install, just go ahead and do it. So that's one thing. And the other thing is it should enable a lot of new use cases besides the one that we are used to. So for business to business, business to consumer, consumer to consumer, a lot of interesting use cases. I mean, we have seen it in advanced ATM machines even. We've seen it in distance education applications. We've seen it in home healthcare, home visit applications. So there's a lot of things that this technology enables. And that part is what's actually most exciting if you look at WebRTC as a platform for innovation, for developing new video services. I mean, after all, I've been in this industry for 20 years, and it's been a niche industry until recently. And with WebRTC, we're sort of opening up the world of video conferencing and visual collaboration also to any web developer. Anyone who develops a portal can add video to it. You can add video to it, you can integrate with your backend tools, your authentication, your user databases, and so on, and create incredibly exciting applications. So I do hope that, that more vendors decide to add full support for WebRTC in their web browsers, because WebRTC deserves so much more, I think.
So we've touched on a couple interesting points that I want to dive a little deeper into. We talked about how I think everyone agrees that interoperability is important because there's this existing installed base of endpoints that primarily use the H.263, H.264 kinds of codecs. Now, on the other side, there's this emerging WebRTC thing coming along that uses the VP8, VP9 codecs. And the other point that I think we all agree on is that while transcoding is necessary, it's better if we don't have to do it. So how do you reconcile these two kind of conflicting trends?
Well, I don't necessarily agree with saying that we all agree that transcoding is a bad thing. I think we have to realize that there will never be the one video codec out there. As we look at what's happening in this industry, there's an increasing number of video codecs out there. I mean, today, most of us here, we support a huge number of codecs already. 263, 261, 264. There's SVC flavors. There's Microsoft's RTV. There's RDP. There is VP8. There's VP9. There's H.265 coming. So there will always be a whole range of video codecs out there. And the same thing goes for audio. So if we do agree that the good thing is for anyone to be able to call anybody else, then we simply have to live with transcoding. So it's not a bad thing. It is a good thing. It is what enables interoperability. So I think waiting for the one codec to save us from that, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think on the WebRTC piece, it's really important for people to recognize it's not saying that WebRTC is only going to use a SIP call setup or SIP messaging. It's not only going to use VP8 or VP9. These things are things that can be developed around. There's WebRTC implementations that could use a SIP call signaling with maybe an H.264 SVC codec or an AVC codec or a VP9 codec. It could also audio codecs are very important, whether it's a G722 or some of the emerging ones like Opus. Those things are really important, and I think that again brings back that whole piece of we got to wait for WebRTC to kind of finalize itself. I don't think it'll ever be finalized. I think it's one of those things that's going to be a very open project that you're going to have organizations that say, we're going to build WebRTC into our portal, and this is how it's going to be done for us. Well, that might not work for AcmeCo, and AcmeCo might do their own flavor of WebRTC, but the reality is they should still be able to talk together. I think that's kind of what we have to look forward to for WebRTC. I think that there will be some, loose standardizations around, okay, the majority of people will use, an XMPP or SIP signaling with a 264 or VP9 codec for video, and then maybe an Opus for an audio codec. But again, I don't understand, or I haven't seen anyone say this is the way it's going to be developed. It's only going to be using these technologies.
Yeah, and that's why the cloud-based services is very important here because the providers will take care of that, will take care of all the transcoding, all the complexities. There was a time where when you wanted to have different protocol, and there was an old time with ISDN and IP, you had a gateway, and you have to manage a gateway in-house, and it was very difficult to do it because it was very complex. Now, since everything is on the cloud, as the end users, you don't care, you just connect whatever you have, WebRTC or others, and the cloud providers will be able to manage the transcoding if needed or not, and send you back the stream that you're supposed to receive. So that puts the complexity to the cloud providers, to the cloud in general, which makes things transparent to the end users, and this is what everybody wants at the end.
Yeah, I think that there is a proliferation of codecs for sure. I think that, as Rob pointed out, there will be some consolidation to just popular use, and the industry will generally select a handful that'll be the dominant codecs. I also think that it also depends on the context of the application that you're looking at. You know, if you're thinking about sort of the standard unified communications, enterprise communications type application, definitely you have an existing install base of, you know, room-based hardware systems that you want to make sure are interoperable. But also when you start to think about other applications, for example, if you're creating a business-to-consumer type application where you're controlling the whole workflow all the way through, in which case, you know, interoperability may not necessarily be as critical of a piece. You can choose the technology that's best for the application and deliver a much higher quality experience. So, you know, I think that so many times we focus on interoperability as an industry, and we harp on that, and it is important, no question, because of the existing install base. But I think that if you really sit down and look at, you know, what's the use case, I've got, you know, 500 room systems deployed, but I'm about to turn up video communications for 20,000 people in their desktop. You know, where's the shift? I think the shift's going to be to whatever that platform is that you're using on the desktop and mobile. So that becomes the dominant platform, and then your room systems actually kind of become the outlier. So, you know, you still need to maintain interoperability with those, but you want to choose the technology and the platform that's going to support that large-scale rollout of users, because you want to deliver a high quality of experience. When you're talking about that large scale, the quality of experience is critical. You don't want to have phone calls from every one of those users because, you know, the video broke or something happened. You want to choose something that's going to be resilient, reliable, and delivers the highest quality possible. So I think that, you know, a lot of times, as I said, we get focused on this whole interoperability side, which is important. I concede that, but you need to look at, you know, the true application as a whole and really understand what are your needs.
So we keep talking about how interoperability is important in the context of supporting the existing install base. So what's the future install base look like? And what's the future role of these kind of room video conferencing setups? And will they continue to be hardware-based, or will it be something else?
I can say, from my perspective, the whole paradigm of conference rooms enabled with video, that's not going to go away. I mean, at least not for a very long time. You're always going to have conference room-based video communications. Whether or not they need to be hardware-based, you know, at Vidyo, we've never developed anything that's custom proprietary hardware. Everything we've developed has been in software, and we choose off-the-shelf Intel-based hardware to run those systems. So, you know, we're getting the same types of quality and performance using commodity hardware as opposed to building something specialized and purpose-built. So I don't think there's really a need to have, you know, the custom-built hardware device unless you just really like it and you think that that's really cool, in which case, use it, that's great. But the benefit of being all software-based is you now have the ability to take advantage of newer technologies when they become available. You know, if you have a hardware-based room system, you know, that's an H.264 codec implemented in hardware. And if you want to support VP8 or 265, for example, you're not going to software upgrade that chip. You know, you're talking about a forklift upgrade to move on.
I think the most important aspect of the hardware-based room systems, which will continue to live on, is probably the audio system and the camera system. The audio system, simply because actually audio is the most important part of a video conference. If you have bad audio, you're pretty much lost. And today, most, I would say, although the most growth will be in PC-based or tablet-based video. There are some challenges with echo cancellation, with bidirectional audio on these smaller devices. So room systems with high-performance audio subsystems will continue to live on, and they should. They offer a superior experience.
Yeah, well, yeah, I kind of a bit disagree with that, meaning that I agree in the way that conference room would always be there. In the meantime, I've always been a very strong believer of software. And since 15 years, so I'm very consistent. And today we can achieve the same result in softwares, and you can have a 1080p, 3 streams, telepresence rooms, and cost you less than $1,000.
Oh yes, absolutely. In software you can have exactly the same or even better video performance, but I'm talking about the acoustics of the room, the microphone,
it could be better
system.
And
that part is what's the most valuable part of a room system, in my opinion.
And the question will be there, and that's probably for the end users, customers, is that how much are they willing to pay to get these extra capabilities? And
exactly.
Because the pricing is so large between a very expensive hardware base versus a software base that they have to guess if they want to invest so much money that will be obsolete in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, so the question of what happens to the room systems, right? What happens to the existing deployed base? These aren't simply just going to go away. No one's going to forklift them out. There may be some companies out there that decide, hey, we want to shift away from some legacy hardware that we're paying ongoing maintenance costs for. But the reality is, as I mentioned before, there's so many of those devices already deployed for different organizations of all shapes and sizes. There needs to be, they're always going to be there. Organizations want to reduce their CapEx, and one of the best ways to do that is to continuously recognize the ROI that they've spent on millions of dollars of hardware infrastructure. They should be able to leverage that with whatever platform they move forward towards, from an MCU component or from a conferencing component. Be able to leverage those existing hardware room systems. Certainly there's a shift right now into some of the more software plays. At Blue Jeans, we see a number of organizations deploying Mac Minis or micro PCs with just simple browser-enabled technology, right? As in USB peripherals as their conference room. But then they also have these existing conference rooms that have two-screen, very boardroom-oriented multi-microphone solutions that they also want to continue leveraging. They spent $100,000 on the thing 3 years ago. Why rip it out and replace it with something else? So I think that there is going to be that relationship of duality where they're going to live together cohesively. You've also got these newer devices that are coming out that are very video-centric. They're USB or HDMI capable solutions. You've got companies like Dahle HD that release that plug-and-play room system. We see a lot of our customers utilizing those. I think that one of the benefits of some of these newer emerging technologies is that API capability to be able to embed into them. So you go to a system like Dahle and you say, hey, I want to make a Blue Jeans call. I can simply go to the Blue Jeans page within Dahle and make that call. I think there's a lot of benefits to the existing hardware, but I certainly think that over time there's going to be a shift towards that software component, whether it lives on PCs and Macs or what have you. And certainly the mobility piece. I mean, we all walk around today with these micro conference room solutions in our pockets. I mean, the capabilities and the quality that we're going to start getting off those is going to expand exponentially. We're just starting to scratch the surface of what can you do with a tablet? What can you do with a smartphone? I mean, I do calls on my smartphone daily, and I'm starting to get spoiled by it. Just, the idea of presence, right? People will no longer need to log into an application and say, hey, is Robb available? Robb's always available. He's got his conference room sitting in his back pocket, right? So I think that that's really where that shift is going to go.
So I know we're almost to the end of our time. I just want to give each panelist a moment to share any closing thoughts with us, as well as any thoughts on what some emerging trends in this space that we might not have already talked about might be. And I'll let Hakon have an opportunity to go first.
Oh boy, emerging trends. We've talked about a lot today. I think the big trend right now is as with much other enterprise software, is the moving to the cloud. But I think what we're doing right now is we are starting to deliver on some of the promises that this industry made 10 or even 20 years ago. So that's actually the most important part that I can see. And I think the one big challenge that we do have in front of us is the user experience. It's still a bit too difficult to use.
Yeah, so on the Evogh side, I would say that we feel that we do have the technologies that, and like others in a panel, which we can provide to the end users, the customers, a very efficient multi-point HD capabilities, and especially on the cloud. The main challenge that we all face is to really have a use case. I mean, we didn't yet consume these technologies. The end user, the end customer didn't get the full capability of that. And sometimes we're speaking about the next step or the second next step, but I will say, what about now? I mean, you have it, you can use it. You can have multi-point HD capabilities, conference anytime you want. And what are you doing with that? What are the use case? And so we really have to identify all the different segments or the vertical market and said, this is exactly what you need. And if not, tell us why, and we can adapt to it. Because the technology is there, it's available already.
I think from an emerging trends perspective, I certainly think, I just talked about it a little bit, is the mobility piece. I think that increasingly organizations of all shapes and sizes are really starting to embrace the idea of mobile computing, the ability to be in an airport and have a video conference with anyone, anywhere, anytime. I think that the idea of presence is really going to start to shift. You know, logging into applications such as Microsoft Link or any other application where you actually see who's available, who's busy, who's offline, is going to start moving away from the desktop. We're going to start saying, you know, everybody is kind of inherently accessible anywhere, anytime with the idea of smartphones. The marrying of those two technologies together to be able to take, you know, kind of that SMS world or that text messaging world where we, you know, we send messages to our colleagues back and forth throughout the day is increasing. And I think that marriage to that video component is really going to be exciting for the industry when we start to see that emerge. I also think that, you know, the capacity of meeting sizes. Right now we talk about multi-point conferences, you know, 5, 10, 15, 25 people. But you're going to really start seeing a lot more organizations saying, you know, we can really have a very large-scale video session with people globally in the magnitude of thousands of people. Now, what are the use cases? That's the thing. I think the technology has kind of prohibited us from exploring those use cases, but the technology is there now, as Philippe said. We should really be able to start to explore some of those. So I think that the use cases is going to be exciting to see from a technology perspective, but also that mobility piece.
Yeah, I agree with Rob about you know, new use cases and finding ways to video enable them. And I think that that's going to be an emerging trend is being able to find a use case that none of us up here have ever even conceived of that would benefit from having visual communications and being able to actually start to proliferate that out on a wide-scale basis so that, you know, no matter what it is you're trying to do, you have an easy way to video enable it, whether it is from a mobile device or desktop PC, you know, taking away all of the technology so that it really doesn't matter, but putting the tools out there so that anyone can really do a custom integration or put video into, you know, their mobile app, put mobile into their website because they want to have, you know, students who need financial aid consultant to come in. And I would say the second big trend that we're already seeing is higher quality in terms of 4K or Ultra HD support. Not that, you know, my mom tells me every day that I'm a handsome guy to look at. Not that necessarily you want to see everyone in 4K, but whenever you have 4K capability, that unlocks a whole lot of other applications, such as visualizations of rich collaboration and detailed information, or multi-point calls where you can actually see everyone in crystal clarity, as opposed to them each being sized down to a tiny little postage stamp view. So.
Well, great. Well, thanks again. I thought this was a great conversation, and just have a round of applause for our great panel. And that concludes our programming for today. And remember, we have a half day of sessions tomorrow, so don't have too much of a good time tonight.